wrapping this up today, and I will entertain you while the stools are brought in, and I want to sit you in a specific order, so I'm going to start with Nisrine here. So we wanted to conclude this with the manager's perspective, right? We heard from the consultant, we heard from the coach. Now we want to hear from people who are leading their organizations and making it work. So let's start with Nisrine. Head of Expansion, Pickups, and Returns at Amazon. In her current role, she leads worldwide expansion for pickup solutions, manages operational and tech roadmaps, and oversees the launch of new product and program. Nisrine, please do join me. I shall sit you here. Next up, Edmond, CEO of Infosysta. He's a highly accomplished leader with over 2 decades of experience in technology, and most recently he joined Infosysta with the task of structuring the group for growth and scalability, and has deeply transformed the operating model, yielding more than 40% year-on-year growth. That's pretty cool. Good job. And last but not least, Katarina Hasbani. Katarina is a partner and global director of strategy and advisory at AESG, a world-leading specialist consultancy, and she's proven experience as an effective leader of global cross-functional teams and has spent 18 years designing strategies and implementing transformation projects. Please welcome our beautiful panel today. All right, so this is how I run all my panels, because I think it works. I will start with one question that you will all answer, and then we're going to run it this way. I'm going to ask Nisrine a question, and then I'm going to get Edmond to comment on it. And we'll see where that goes. So my first question to all three of you is, tell me about a time, just in your own personal experience, when you were part of a team or an organization that was exceptional at delivering on their strategy, and what you've learned from that time together.
So many of the things maybe that I will say will sound maybe redundant to stuff that were said before by Jean or others. However, this is reinforcing a message. So I think hopefully it's not sounding redundant, but more like reassurance that this is the right path. So I think we've talked about strategy design and we talked about execution. And you have winning strategies ideally, and you have successful executions again, ideally, but in reality, there are different shades across both phases. And the organizations that I've worked with, where I've seen that there was a difference in leading both sides, is not to see them as two separate parts, right? Like we talked about that handshake, that phase in between where we're moving from design to execution. And actually, when you're designing, you don't have line of sight of what's in the field. So it has to be an iterative process, and you have to allow to pivot. I mean, when Jean was talking about lean, it's in the context of being able to see whether you're on the right track, whether you need to make changes. And again, we talk about the horizon of strategy execution. So you're talking about 3 to 5, and strategy is ongoing actually, because after 3 to 5, you need to have another strategy. So making sure that you have a gap analysis between design and execution is like a first step for success. The second one is allowing the iterative process to go back to the drawing board where needed and allow for changes. Maybe 2 practical things that I see at Amazon and I really like, maybe they'll stick with the audience, are we're very big on writing documents, right? So every review we have like big documents that are Word documents written. But we have a section that is called, and I love that, dogs not barking. And dogs not barking means,
I didn't know that.
Take yourself out of that context of execution that you are so focused on day in, day out, and try to figure out what is it that we're not paying attention to. It might be internal, it might be external, it might be a shift externally, it might be we're burning out our people actually with the stressful execution. So dogs not barking. Another one that I really love, and maybe again you'll take this with you, is establish tenets, and tenets are like guiding principles, especially when you have contention around, do I make that strategic choice or that strategic choice? You go back to what were the priorities. I'll prioritize CX over anything else, and that helps you in, detangling the situation and making the best choice.
I love that. One of the great thinkers in the strategy world, Roger Martin, he's the guy who invented where to play and how to win. He actually writes about this. He refuses to even acknowledge the expression strategy execution. And he says thinking of them as two separate things is like thinking of a brain without a body, and that's just, in his perspective, not useful. Thank you so much for that. Edmond, tell us about your experience in being a team or an organization that delivers exceptionally well and what we can learn from it.
Sure. So just to set the context, we are a fairly small organization, roughly 70 people. We operate in 4 countries. And the thing is that strategy for me depends a lot on the size of the organization, the maturity of the organization. Oh,
yes,
okay.
There you go.
The financial stability of the organization and the geography. We cannot afford today to have a 5-year strategy. We have a 1-year strategy. And the strategy for us is simple. It's a beacon that we all focus on. It's really something that we all look at and we all row in the same direction, and we are all accountable to reach that milestone. I used the term all like 7 times in one sentence. And that's exactly it, is that I don't put the strategy for the rest of the organization. I craft the strategy with my executives, and then it kind of rolls down to the people that are involved to executing that with the right set of accountability, because I don't believe that you can impose a strategy. If the people, and I think Wissam, you touched on it, and Jean touched on it, if the people don't buy in, if the people don't have the visibility of where are we going, why do I have to row and row hard and against the wind and against the tide and against everything towards this direction, they're not going to do it. People are going to fall off, and people are going to fall off thinking that they did all what they could have done to reach that beacon. So that's really crucial for me, is to have everybody on board, aligned and looking, really being laser focused on that same point. Now, the thing is that that point may shift, may change, but that's where the organization, and I talk from myself all the way down, need to accept the fact that, okay, we all thought that we had to focus, you mentioned CX. It wasn't the right direction. We had to do something else. And I always say that the worst decision is no decision. Like, okay, we don't know, we're going to see what happened. No, we have to take a decision, and we have to go through that decision. Now, going just a little bit more into that, all my people in the organization are part of each and every discussion that we have when we talk about strategy. Every discussion, from the smallest one to the biggest one. And we don't always agree. Sometimes we agree that I'm not in agreement with this strategy, but it doesn't change the fact that I am going to abide and I'm going to go ahead with you on this strategy, and then we'll see where we're going to get. And from there on, then we improvise. And then again, I can afford that because we're a small organization. We're very nimble, we're very agile, and we can do that. I can understand that bigger organizations cannot afford to have that. But that's our privilege in a way, and I'm happy about that. And just to finish off on a sentence, we all heard about what Peter Drucker said, is that, in essence, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's it. If you have the culture of people that will follow you, or at least will buy in your strategy, you're good. If it's the other way around, then it gets very complex.
Beautiful, thank you. We're a small company, like even much smaller than you, and I always say I have a 20-year strategy and a 2-month execution plan. and I totally echo that. And it's also why we invited the 3 of you, because you offer such a different perspective of global multinationals, smaller companies, regional companies. Katarina, over to you. I don't think your mic is working. It is definitely working.
I was so stressed by this question because I was like, I was never part of an organization that excelled in strategy implementation.
Sorry.
And then I stopped and I was like, okay, what does it mean to excel in strategy implementation, right? And I'm speaking from the perspective of everyone's experience here since 2019, but even before that, right? For context, I worked my whole life in energy, and when I was thinking about this, I realized, 20 years we've been in transition. At first it was, clean energy transition, now we call it, sustainability transition, decarbonization transition, but 20 years in the industry, we've always been in transition, right? So, and then I thought about what happened since 2019 and what does a successful strategy look like. And actually, a successful strategy provides you a framework to react to what's happening around you, right? But not happening, whatever life throws at you,
Nice.
business-wise, right? So that you can pick it up and create revenue or value. That's a strategy that is excellent, right?
I love that.
And also small organization. I'm currently part of a consultancy firm, roughly 350 people, in offices in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, in Riyadh, in Neom, and Singapore and London. So we have luxury of being nimble. We have a tagline, building sustainable world. And back in time, this meant just certifying buildings that they are LEED compliant. And on the back of everything that has been happening since past 5 years, right? Like we do now everything. We do environmental assessments. We do technical services for sustainable buildings. I'm now heading a strategy advisory that works with any asset-heavy sector on implementation of sustainability and decarbonization. So we've taken the tagline and created revenue and value out of it. So that's what I thought, and then I calmed down. I was like, okay, it's not so bad, but what is strategy exactly? It should just be a tool that helps you to do something, right?
I love that.
It shouldn't be like the holy grail that you need to stick to, right?
It's a framework to react to the world. I think that's such an incredible way of putting it. And
It's my IP, yeah.
guys, she coined it first. And I think that's really interesting because similarly, like in the early days of Cosmic, is to say like, I don't know what we sell, I know what we do. I know what we deliver. We'll figure out what we sell. And I think that ability to then carve out what makes sense for the world at that moment is really great. All right, now on to my hot seat setup, where I will ask Nisrine the first question and get Edmond to react to it, and so on and so forth. Nisrine, when we spoke, you said something that I really love. Because I always say this, if you've ever been to a workshop of mine, you've probably heard me say this. The word decision has the same root as the word scissors. It actually means to cut things out. We think that it means to make a decision as additive, but actually it's about cutting things out. And that was the first thing you said to me. Like I was speaking to you, like, okay, so what would you like to speak about? And she's like, listen, the first thing we need to all agree on is that strategy is a trade-off. Talk to me about that.
Strategy is a trade-off because you can't have it all, right? So that's the point of strategizing and saying what works for you, for your company, for your employees. How do you see the world? So in a way, as you make one choice, you're dropping other choices. And that's okay, but as long as you have done the proper analysis as why this is working for you. And I think part of that question was also where leaders underestimate trade-offs. And I think I heard Jean mention about there is no ambition big enough. Although I'm thinking that layering a bigger ambition for the organization, like we want to increase market share, we want to innovate, and we want to penetrate new markets, all at the same time, does not work. I mean, you need to have a North Star, your 20-year strategy, but then you have to take this into pieces and work with timelines and like breakable, digestible pieces so that you can eventually get there. And maybe along the way, your North Star will shift as well. So it's not set in stone. So I think one of the facts that we don't think about it in an incremental fashion is also a wrong way to approach strategy. The other one is obviously favoring short-term gains over long-term gains. And oh my God, how many companies do that, right? Like we're so short-sighted on what's going to give me an increase in revenue over the coming 2 years rather than the sustainability of it over the long run. And I think the last point I would say is the FOMO. Like we're even socially today, there's a lot of distraction, there's a lot of temptation around us, and we're like, okay, do I get on this social network? Do I do this? And sometimes it gets overwhelming. I think it's the same for businesses. You have a FOMO, and Like, do I get on the metaverse, or I'm gonna miss the boat if I don't do that in a bit? Have I integrated AI? And the reality is you can't do it all. So it's really a trade-off on saying, what do I stick to? What is noise? It's good noise, but it's not for me. And being able to make those choices day in, day out.
Yeah, I love that. That trade-off piece is so essential. And if we go back to the definition of strategy, it's a set of integrated choices, which means they have to work together, not just spread us apart. Edmond, when we were talking, one of the big trade-offs that I loved about your story is that when you came into the company and were trying to set the way forward, you very consciously decided to trade off letting some things burn and letting some things that were broken stay broken. I want you to talk about that.
Okay, so setting the scene again on that one. Imagine just for 1 second, walking into a room, dark room, just a little bit lit, with some things happening there. You're not sure what's happening, and all of a sudden you have a ball, a crystal ball, a light bomb with a fuse, I don't know, a spike, and you have to juggle with that, and you have to make a decision. You know you're going to drop something. You cannot do it, and you have to understand your environment. And that's exactly the first, I'm going to say, 3 months of when I joined the company. It was exactly that. It was about figuring out what's happening, juggling with the balls, deciding which one I can drop, which one I can keep flying in the air, and at the same time figuring out who's in this room, who's doing what, who's sitting where, and what are, I'm going to say, the dynamics of this room. And put that in context of COVID, so remote, not meeting with people.
Wow.
So the way I went about it is very simple. I said, what do I do best? What do I know what to do? How I don't do this, I know how to do that. So I consciously decided to drop some ball and to focus on what I know how to do. And then as we tried, or I started to figure out the dynamics of this company, who does what exactly, who are the ambitions, the challenges, I was able to pick up again these balls and give them to someone, and somebody was owning that. And that's how we got to a point today where I can safely say that, not say all of them, but the majority of the balls we're kind of okay with them. We know how to juggle with them. Some people, I offloaded myself to someone. But if I look back a couple of years, like that took around 2.5 years, so I don't know if it's a short or a long period, honestly. I have no idea. But it's the time that it took me to do that. I think that initially you cannot do everything. You have to accept the fact that things are going to break. What are the things that are going to break, and how you accept that? And that ties back into the culture. We all agree that we're going to suck at marketing. Fine, we accept it. Just move ahead. Just stop lingering about that. We all agree that we're not going to favor, I don't know, geographical expansion. All of these things will always tie in if you have the backup of your people.
Beautiful. And you also did something else that I have a lot of respect for. I love good discipline. I started my career in a company where I spent 10 years. It was the best job I've ever had, but we also went bankrupt at the end. And I think good financial spreadsheets would have solved that. But I love good discipline. And one of the things you also did is, in order to go into this dark room and see better, you put in place a management system that before we go to strategy, we just need to know, we need to be able to measure basic things. Talk to us about that discipline, how you went about it.
Sure. So again, taking the example of the room, some people had been in that room for 6 or 7 years. The company, what I took over, was a company that was very driven by the founder. So it wasn't really a company. It was a team around a very, very strong person, character-wise, very smart guy, and everything was turning around him. All of a sudden, this guy just moved out. I replaced him, and it was about the people were, okay, what do we do now? And I had, I think Wissam touched on that, I had the people that were kind of very excited for me, that I came in. I had people who were, I'm not sure this guy's gonna make it. And I had the people that were literally, I'm not happy, I don't want that, this is not working, and I don't even know what he's talking about. So factoring all of that in, my approach was to say, okay, let's take some time first to understand what you do in this company, since when you do it, what do you like, what you don't like about your job, and what you would be ideally doing in this company, not in 2-3 years, like in 6 months. And I remember a guy, it's an anecdote, who told me, I have been here 6 years, I want to be in the management. I said, yeah, great. I mean, pretty much it's me in the management, so what do you want to do? What is for you being in the management? I think with my experience, I need to be at least a COO. I said, great, you're COO, so what do we do now? This is the thing. So it took a lot of iteration to get the people to understand what does it mean to make and to take a decision? And the funny thing is that some of them, the detractors, are the people that are today the biggest, I'm not going to say advocates, but are really in the company deep. I mean, they're 100% committed. And the guys that were this guy is going to be great for us, are still at the same position because they didn't want to change. They didn't want to challenge themselves. They didn't want to kick themselves in the butt and go outside of their comfort zone. They were just comfortable where they were. So to answer your question, it was a lot of spending time with people, understanding what they want to do, understanding the personality, the challenges, and blah, 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 and all of these things that eventually some people dropped off. Some people left the company, some other people came in, etc. But I think that the dialogue and the way talking with the people all the time and understanding the challenges of the people, and sorry, another anecdote because it's going to tell you to which level of details it went. I had people sending me emails, can I book a hotel room including breakfast? I was like, I mean, come on, senior people. They said, yeah, because before we couldn't make this decision. That was literally it. So yeah, that's hard to deal with. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much.
And you also put in place great measurement systems. We spoke about kind of your project level accounting, your real expenses, like just basics, really.
Yes, yeah. So that's another thing. So technology was not there. We didn't have a CRM. We didn't have a project management tool. Rami knows about that. We didn't have anything. So it was Excel spreadsheet and some software that was 25 years old. So we had to put in place all of that. And that was a cultural shock as well. People didn't want to use it. Well, why should I use this? I have always been using that. So I said, yes, but now it's different. You have to change with it. So there was resistance, but putting in place those technologies for sanity check what is my pipeline today? Who am I selling to? Yeah, I have been contacted by whatever, and they are interested. So, okay, great. So, but what's going to happen next? I'm going to call them. I said, yeah, that's great, but I need visibility. So we've put in place all of that. Today we have all the systems. We're still looking for other things, but that was a big part, correct, of really,
sometimes
I call it the plumbing.
Before the strategy, you just need the basic enablers.
Oh, no, we're not talking strategy.
Yeah, we're not there. We're like, can we just see ahead?
Let's do it now.
Yeah, exactly. You need a little bit of stuff before you even get to the aspirational things. Katarina, when we spoke about like how to successfully manage this process, how to create the management systems that allow you to see and to think and to make good decisions, you were felt very strongly about engaging every layer of the organization. How do you approach that? You're both in an organization that's going through a great growth and transformation, so you're a member of one of these organizations, but you're also a consultant to companies and you help them make sure that everybody in the room is heard. What's your approach? I love hard questions.
It's hard work, that's what I wanted to say. It's hard work because it involves a lot of meetings, it involves a lot of engagements, what you just mentioned, right? I think one of the things that is a bit such a legend in the consulting world is that you make a presentation and everyone buys in, right? Like, has it ever happened for anyone?
Nope.
Impossible, right? So, and you have to do that at 3 layers, right? You have to do that at the middle management layer, you have to do that at the bottom layer, and you have to do that at the executive management layer, and multiple times. Like, there is no other way.
Marketeers will say 7.
Sure. Yeah, depends on the organization, depends on the management style in the organization, depends on the decision-making process in the organization, but it's just, make a plan, understand what are the different layers, plan for several rounds of meetings, start with, and actually maybe that's the most important thing is, start with the overall idea, the vision, the purpose, rather than tiny bit of details, numbers. There is this book and a talk that I listen to that I love, and if any of my clients are here or you will talk to them, don't freak them out, but numbers are not that important actually. I know I'm a bit provocative here, and especially in what I do, sustainability and decarbonization, it's not about the numbers. I can make for you a business case, I can tell you how many percentages are we going to reduce, I'm going to calculate the carbon footprint, sure. But it's not about that, it's about the overall vision, the purpose, getting the buy-in. And here, I think in this region, we often fixate at the beginning on the numbers. Give me the numbers, right? The budget, how much it will cost, the savings, or how much we will make, right? But I think it has proven, for me at least, fruitful towards engaging someone, having a discussion first about the purpose, the vision, then following up with one level of detail, and then sort of closing at the end with, okay, these are the details, and they are aligned with your hierarchy below you, and so on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And people are at the center of this. And, you know, we've spoken a lot about both those things, the very rational, almost engineering approach to strategy and execution, and then the complex, sometimes messy, very beautiful and human approach to strategy and alignment and motivation. What have you seen work in terms of aligning the humans? Forgetting all of this, you know, you say the numbers don't matter, the strategy doesn't matter. How do we get the humans to build something together? Oh.
Yeah. I think often we focus on how does this individual fit into the strategy. Mm-hmm. I think it's much more fruitful to think with the individual, how does this strategy serve you? Because if we identify that point, that connection, that's where they will own it and they will carry it. They will be clear about, okay, this is how this strategy serves me, that's why I'm gonna support it and I'm gonna carry it with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when we say that, like I know that when I say this, no matter what the size of the company is, maybe like below 100, you're like, okay, no problem, I can talk to every person. You know, we say, I'm gonna go down to every individual, how am I gonna do that? And I wanna close this off before our final question by saying, I'm a marketeer, like my background is in marketing and product and customer facing things. And I try to bring in what we do there to how we manage organizations and our staff. Because actually, on the customer side, we're quite happy talking to the individual. We're quite happy catering to their individual needs. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from how we serve our customers to understand how we can also align our internal, like, essentially, the people who have to get this stuff done, right? And that's where I want to close this off with you, Nisrine, because you come from like the company that essentially invented customer centricity. And so tell us about how that piece, because we forget, right? We often also think that strategy is an internal problem, but actually no one else matters but what the customer ends up doing or not doing off the basis of our intervention. So I want to get just your perspective about what you've learned from this organization that you work in and the focus and the obsession about customer that we can bring in to close off the lesson about how to be great at delivering value.
I'm going to answer that, but not only on customer side, because I think where I love the way of working at Amazon is that we look at every stakeholder group, right? So obviously customer ultimately, and we work backwards from the customer, but then it's not that we're only listening to voice of the customer, we're listening for voice of our drivers, voice of the partners. So again, going back maybe to the analogy that Jean did around the human body and every functional strategy, operational strategy, who are the key beneficiaries or recipients that are impacted. And as we make those strategic choices, as we execute on the strategy, ask ourselves, what does it mean to those stakeholder groups, right? Like what our customers would say about it, and integrate that into the decision making. Again, going back to the docs that we write, we have anecdotes and we have voice of customer, voice of partner. In every decision that we're making an intentional decision to incorporate what does that mean for them, and putting yourself in their shoes. Everybody, the people delivering, the people you're partnering with in my line of business. And in every line of business, I'm sure there are multiple stakeholder groups. They can be vendors, they can be suppliers, whatever they are. Make sure that what matters to them is also part of how you're thinking about your strategic choices.
I love that. And I think what's really interesting is you go from an intention, oh, we want to put customers, drivers, partners, stakeholders at the center of our discussion, but now you have the discipline to actually integrate it into your working process, which is we have this document, and by the way, we have to be very clear about the voice of the customer in this process. And that allows us to do this at scale. And marketeers know how to do this at scale all the time, but we've never kind of internalized that it's just about these, sometimes it's a simple checkpoint, it's a simple process. And so the last question that I have for all three of you is about those simple things. It's a two-barreled question. So the first one is, what is something really tactical that you do that you think helps you deliver with your team on your objectives? Very tactical, low to the ground. And two, what is the one leadership skill that you think is the most important when it comes to delivery? Please.
So on the tactical thing within the team, we actually set up also, so success factors are what everybody tends to think of, right? Like, so if we're executing on the strategy, we need to achieve A, B, and C to be successful. No one really, and arguably the opposite of that is failure, but you really need to put those signals of failure as well and have a very honest health check of where you're standing at multiple milestones. So it's not only looking at how is this succeeding, but then are we seeing any failure signs that we need to act upon or, like adjust. So I think this from a team perspective is a good kind of hygiene as well, action. On the leadership skill, and maybe a bit peculiar, but I have a list of like my key stakeholders, right? Okay. And I do make a very intentional effort of connecting with them often, whether I need something work-related or not. So I build connections that are intentional. Sometimes it can be a 15-minute social call. Sometimes it can be just a message, say, hey, checking in, not heard from you from like a month, or we've not touched base because we didn't interact for business sake. However, when I need something for business sake,
they'll be there.
It's amazing because you can really rely on those connections, and you're doing it more genuinely. So yes, it's not a personal agenda that I need to take. And amazingly, it also has a ripple effect to my team, because when those stakeholders kind of perceive you in a good way and have a good relationship with you, there's somehow an automatic way of, if someone from my team goes to them, they're more willing to collaborate and to help than if I had not built those bridges.
I love that. Again, it's about collective performance, and collective performance needs strong relationships. And that discipline to do it is one of the key success criteria for leaders. Thank you for that. How about you, Edmond? One tactical thing, one skill, one leadership trait.
Sure. So for the tactical thing, I'm going to give another example. You figured out I like examples. So in the organization, there was, or there still is actually, a WhatsApp group. Everybody was on that group, but I wasn't, obviously. And
Let's talk about you.
Exactly. So the group, this group was about people, and I'm going to use a bad term, bitching and moaning about what's happening in the organization. And in small organization, that's a killer. Yeah. It's really a killer, especially for new people coming in and you earn the badge, you are in the group. So they were put in the group automatically, and everybody was like, oh, I'm part of this group. So I was figuring out how can we solve that. And that was a very tactical decision. I said, okay, I'm going to give to each and every team lead a budget of $2,000 it was to do events. You have $2,000 per month to take your team out and the other teams. And if you don't spend it, you're not going to get it next month. What happened is that people were going out, were bitching and moaning, that getting drunk or whatever they want to do, and this group pretty much disappeared. Nobody's using it anymore. I'm still not part of it, but the thing is that it was a way to just trigger that and say, stop using that, stop just putting things, go out, have fun, etc. And it worked. So I'm happy. Smart. That was really very tactical thing. Now, on the other question about the leadership, I would say that the skill, in my case, that is really crucial is having the transparency and the honesty with your people. Be honest for the good and the bad. If you don't have that, it's about they need to trust in you, but you need to trust them as well. If that's not there, it's not going to work. Yeah. It will never work. And Wissam, you showed the picture of these old don't trust your executive. That's spot on. It's exactly that. And I heard from other people like saying, no, don't share too much information with the rest. Don't do that, because then it's going to bite you back. No, I don't think it's true.
Yeah.
And so far it worked. And for me, that would be, I would put it under the umbrella of transparency and having this bond of confidence and trust with your people.
I'm quite radical about transparency in our company. Every single person, including my interns, see my P&L on a monthly basis. And all the other indicators that we look at, and we have a discussion about it. And I want them to know where the money that they're contributing to is going. And I want them to know, actually, it's not going to making me richer. It's going to making our company more sustainable and being invested in this way. And we have a conversation about it. Thank you for that. And last but not least, Katarina.
Nice. What can I add? Tactical. One tactical is hard to achieve, but it really helps if everyone is in a good mood.
Yes, we eat ice cream when we get new clients.
How do you achieve that?
I mean, I have my moves. I mean, I'm in a, actually, good point. I'm in a good mood.
Yes.
Because it spreads, right?
Love that.
It spreads across the team.
Do you send people home when they're in a bad mood?
Yes, we allow them. We allow
Katarina
them.
sends people home if they're
We
not
allow
nice.
them to work from home. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what's a leadership trait that you've observed
Leadership
here?
trait. I like to think, and you have to ask my team, but I like to open people's horizon to something new. So they're like, wow, I haven't thought about this. I haven't thought that I can do this. I haven't
them.
thought that this is out there for me.
Inspiration. Thank you to all three of you for being so inspirational today. And with that, as I told you, we have 5 weeks of programming. We'll send you all of this in an email later. But last time we did an event, someone called me back and said, I didn't pay for this. And I said, we do this for free. It's part of our mission to spread knowledge. And they said, well, how can I thank you? So I had to think about it. And so there are 2 ways that you can thank us. One is, in year 1, when we celebrated our first anniversary, we decided we wanted to contribute further than just what we're able to do. So we started a fund called the Cosmic Centaurs Fund. And it serves to educate women in Lebanon to help them enter the digital economy. And so if you enjoyed this, and if you can spare something this month, please contribute to this fund. It would make us absolutely joyous. And I started this fund in honor of my mother, who's sitting here, first stage. She studied software engineering when computers were rooms. So she's a pioneer, and I always say I'm only V2. So I want us to create more V3s and V4s. If you can contribute, that would make us really happy. And the last thing is that we run a yearly survey actually looking into how we build human connection in organizations, because strong human connection leads to more effectiveness, more happiness, more productivity, just good results for everybody. So it is about 17-minute process, so it is an investment of your time, not your money. But if you do have that time, we would be incredibly grateful. We're hoping to get 1,000 responses in the next few weeks. And with that, my final piece of gratitude is, of course, to my team. Present with us today are Tala, Marie, and Hadil. And not present, yeah, give them a round of applause. Yeah, actually, and Marie is all the way back there. Thank you, and Hadil is somewhere. This morning, Tala shared the kind of run-through of the event. She's like, Marie, you're going to do this, and Hadil, you're that, and I'm on this. And then she said, Marilyn, you just smile and look pretty. So I can only do this because I'm supported by such an incredible team, and of course, our team members in Lebanon and Egypt. And thank you to all of you. We do not take your time lightly. That you chose to spend 2.5 hours with us means the world. And we're so, so grateful for our community. Thank you for making the time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.